and so it is just November 19th, and so I'll call the DEI subcommittee meeting to order. Chair Jennifer Lima is unable to be here today, and so as the other school committee rep, I will help co-facilitate the meeting with Mr. Mazzanotti. So the first item on the agenda is to approve the meeting minutes, and so can I get a motion to approve the 10/22 meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, can I have a second?
A second.
Okay, Mary. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then I'll abstain because I wasn't here. Okay, perfect, and so those are all set. And so the next item on the agenda is an update / discussion on genocide education. Hello.
Hello.
Come on in.
Do we want to
Yeah,
do?
I realized that. Yep, I had a
Can we do
moment.
that off the agenda?
We can.
All right.
Welcome. Okay, so why don't we do quick introductions, just because we do have some new folks in the room, which is really exciting. And so we'll start on this side with Rob, and we'll go around and have everybody introduce themselves in addition to our guest. So, Rob, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Rob Mazzanotti, Assistant Superintendent. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Shivali Finkelstein, Principal at the high school. Yeah.
And my name's Erin Earl. I'm the school committee chair, so welcome.
I'm Mary Lowe-Presti, parent disability advocate.
Junior Profiteer, teacher at the high school.
I'm Malia Cardos. I'm a sophomore at North Kingston High School.
I'm Victoria Cormier. I'm a senior at North Kingston.
I'm Will, and I'm a senior at NK.
You guys become seniors. It's wild. Go ahead.
Ian Christian, our instructor at Hamilton.
Hamilton, wild today. Okay, and then do you want to go ahead?
80s.
I'm Allie Nasenzi. I was just hired yesterday to be equity, belonging, and community engagement.
So we'll officially welcome Allie later in the agenda, but she was very kind to come as a guest today, and then we'll go through the process to get her officially on the committee at the next school committee meeting. So, okay, now we've done that. So we'll go back to the agenda, and so I think the first thing is the update and discussion on genocide education. I believe, Rob, you knew this was on the agenda?
I did,
Okay,
yes.
great. And I think this is in light of some of the things that have been going on in other school districts in Rhode Island. Jen had asked Rob to provide us a brief update kind of on what education students get in North Kingstown. So
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to Rob, and then we can go from there.
Absolutely. So in light of obviously, certain situations that we've seen in other school districts, and also in light of the importance of the matter at hand, just wanted to kind of take a few moments to talk about the teaching of genocide in our schools, and what we do and what is really required by statute in the state of Rhode Island. So Rhode Island requires the teaching of genocide in secondary public schools in throughout the state, and so it has resources on its website that highlight the different tragedies that afflicted groups of people, and as part of, their stories of the genocide that took place. And so in North Kingstown, we gathered some information about this just to, again, bring this to the attention of the DEI group. So at the middle school level, a book called Mouse is taught in 8th grade, and that's a book that covers the history of the Holocaust in a literary sense. Also, at the high school level, in the social studies department, in 9th grade and 11th grade, there's in 9th grade, inquiry topic is on global war and Cold War, and the compelling question includes, were the conflicts of the 20th century inevitable? And in this unit of study, students learn about World War II and the Holocaust. They argue how the events of World War II and the atrocities associated with the Holocaust and other crimes against humanity led to lasting social, political, and economic impacts globally. Also, in inquiry topic 4, the compelling question was the good war good for all? And this is a study of the revelations of Nazi genocide against the European Jews, arguing the lasting effects of the causes, results, and responses to the Holocaust. And also in the social studies department in the middle school level, there are topics covered regarding the Holocaust and genocide, but also the Sudan and South Sudan genocide, which is covered during the Africa unit, connecting to the English language arts curriculum through the reading of A Long Walk to Water. Also, the Armenian genocide is addressed in the Asia unit. Students learn about a character from Armenia and how he worked to save a particular tulip variety at the start of the Armenian genocide in 1915. And students actually plant 100 tulips as part of this learning experience. And they revisit the topic in the spring on Armenian Genocide Recognition Day to reflect on the living memorial they created. Also, they study the Cambodian genocide, which is explored through the geography of Asia, and the early civilizations of Central America, where a discussion includes the interactions between conquistadors and the impacts on the Aztec people. So, also it was mentioned at the middle school level that as a department, social studies teachers have been working toward more intentional and consistent integration of genocide-related content across the curriculum. And in support of this goal, middle school teachers Sandra McKilsky and David Aubin have submitted a grant through the NEA Foundation titled Teaching About Difficult Topics, Genocide. And they're looking to attend a professional development workshop in March of 2026 to expand their knowledge of this.
Thanks, Rob. Any questions for Mr. Mezzanotte regarding the information he just presented? I have a note from Jen that says, if Rob doesn't mention these things, please do, but you hit them all, so good job, Rob. No, I think that's great. I also would add to that as a mom of elementary school students, I'm always impressed at the books that they have available to them at the library on topics that are age appropriate and really meaningful. My son has checked out many of them because he really likes that era and learning about history. And so I do think, you know, although it's very well embedded in the curriculum, it looks like there are opportunities for younger students to learn as well, which is great. Okay, so moving on. We have the discussion of North Kingstown recognition from Social Olympics International, correct? Rob, anything you want to add there, or do you want me to?
Well, I think it's a great honor that the high school was recognized, the high school of special education was recognized by the Special Olympics for their achievements with inclusion. I know that there was a banner that was unveiled as part of this celebration and this recognition at the high school, and there's going to be, I believe, an upcoming celebration of this happening at the high school, correct?
December 12th.
December 12th, yes. So we're really looking forward to it. It's a really looks like to be a tremendous event on December 12th. There were formal invitations sent out from the special ed department, and we're going to be highlighting you know, the wonderful students who do so much to add to the character of our school and the just the fabric of our school. They do a wonderful job, and we're really looking forward to it. We're looking forward to celebrating with them. I know that we had the unified volleyball.
Yeah.
The game for the school to come and watch, and all their peers to cheer them on, which is always one of my favorite events to do. Is that I know we do the same thing with basketball in the spring as well. So the department does a tremendous job. It's really come a long way, and I think it speaks to the character really of our school and our special education department and the entire school for their commitment to inclusion to be recognized in that way. So it's a wonderful thing. Do you want to add anything?
No, we're just very excited about the event. I knew that 3 years ago they wanted to really, the special ed team came to us and said, we really want to become the champion school for this purpose. And since then they have participated. They do the plunge every year, and it's just nice to see that they're being recognized for all their efforts on inclusion. So we're looking forward to the event.
That's awesome, and I think it's you know, I think it's really good to celebrate the wins. We talk a lot about things we need to improve and things we need to work on, and so I think it's also really important to acknowledge the awesome things that happen in the district and the really hard work of the students and the staff and administration. So I think that's an exciting thing for us for sure, and we'll be there December 12th, so that's great. Okay, so next, more exciting news. We have an update / discussion on the Equity, Belonging, and Engagement Coordinator. And so this was actually on before we knew we would have last night's meeting with the appointment, but we are very excited that we have someone in the role. Obviously, they're in the room right now. And so I don't know if you want to introduce yourself, or Rob, if you want to, or I can pull up and read the bio, whatever your comfort level is, Allie. No pressure, seriously. You can also come to
I'll
the
just
table
say, yeah,
too.
you can come to the table. I'll just say we're thrilled to welcome Allie
Yeah.
to our team. We're absolutely just really excited to get started. Today's her first day, so she's obviously here, and you know, we got to know Allie through the interview process, and you know, her experience, her knowledge, her passion for this work is something that we're really excited about, and we know she's going to bring a lot to our team. So Allie, if you want to.
Yep, I'm really excited to be here. I know I've met some of you in the interview, but, you know, I started off as a special education teacher, so my whole career has been built on equity and access, and I feel like this position was created for me, so I'm really excited to dive in. And so far, the welcome has been so nice in North Kingstown, so thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So that is extremely good news, and thank you to the administration for doing the search for that position and getting someone in that role. And so we're really excited to be able to have the administration work with Allie to really revamp up a lot of the work that this committee was championing and advising the school committee on. So that is, I think, an important position to have filled, and will be really great in continuing the great work that you all have advised the school committee and the administration to really focus on. So, any questions?
Allie, what's your last name?
Vicenzi.
Can you spell that?
Yes. It's every vowel in N as in. N as in Nancy, Ascenzi.
Thank you.
They used to be Amaral, it was much easier.
It was just one vowel there.
Yeah, everybody just spelled that.
Great, so any other questions regarding that? Okay, awesome. So the next item on the agenda is an update / discussion on accessibility / inclusion review. And so, I don't know, Mary, if you have any information about that. It says something about, follow up from CLAC. I don't know.
Okay.
What do you know?
So, I'm wondering, can we just jump back to the spring, because remember we made a motion, and it
Yeah.
was brought to the school committee
Yep,
about approval of, so let me back up, because I know some people are new. One, it was probably just around this time last year, I had proposed, doing this just on a very informal level, having what we would term an accessibility audit of the district, because I had a child who was in the school, was, you know, in a wheelchair, so we got to see all of the ways that there was ease in getting in and out, and where there were some obstacles. So I have proposed that we do a review that would include, you know, entry points, bathrooms, parking spaces, etc. And I think it was in May
Yeah.
that we had made a motion and brought it to the
Found it
school
too, so-
committee.
yep. Do you want me
But
to
I
read it?
think that was, yeah, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
just to
no worries.
update.
So, and thank you for helping Mary. So on May 23rd, around that date, the end of May, the DEI Advisory Committee had requested by a vote of 9-0 that the school committee direct the administration to implement a district-wide facility audit assessing building conditions, safety, accessibility, and cultural inclusivity across all school sites. The audit should include evaluations of infrastructure, ADA compliance, visual representation, and inclusivity of learning environments. And we had recommended involving school-based educators in that process, as well as individuals with lived experience to ensure diverse perspectives are represented.
I feel like some, I don't know, weird.
The front door not open?
Sorry.
So did you try a different door, or is this?
No, I just
okay,
saw the
no,
lights and I
I'm
thought
here
it'd
for
be
it.
easier
We're
for
so
you
glad
better.
you're here.
That is a little embarrassing.
I will not lie, you did scare us. No, right there. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And or you actually, you like a, you can sit wherever you want. So that's right. Welcome.
It's nice to see everybody.
We're so glad you're here.
Thanks,
So do you want to just quickly introduce yourselves too? Because we do have some new faces in the room, which is exciting.
Hi, I'm Sue Curley. I'm the school psychologist at Quinessa.
Sue. So we have a new student, correct?
Yeah, I'm Aaliyah Cardos.
It's nice to meet you.
And then I believe you probably, do you need other
Mr.
introductions?
Propertier.
Yeah.
High school.
Nice to meet you.
And then we have our new appointed as of yesterday, Equity, Belonging, and Engagement Coordinator, Ally
Nessenzi.
Nice to
Nessenzi.
meet you, Ally.
Okay, and so we are on the agenda item talking about the accessibility and inclusion review that we had requested to the school committee, or advised the school committee to request of the administration. And so my assumption is, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, not a lot of movement on this, as we have had some turnover in that role with facilities. So last night, if you watched the school committee meeting, which I would assume none of you did, but bravo if you did, we actually approved the administration shifting that position of director of facilities to director of operations, which is exciting because it'll allow that role to have a little bit of a larger, more strategic vision of facilities, et cetera, and is also connected with having direct reports of transportation, which is really important, I think, in this context, as well as food services, which is also really important for students. And so that was kind of Dr. Duba's vision on how to reimagine the district from an administrative point, and so that was approved by the school committee tomorrow night. I would imagine today, tomorrow, very quickly it will get posted, soonish, and then hopefully have someone in that role by the new year, would be my hope, but I don't know.
Yeah, we believe it was posted
Yeah.
today. I want to add a little bit, if that's
Yes,
okay,
please do.
because Dr. Duva has really taken a great leadership role with this process, and we're further along, I think, than many would have expected.
It's great.
Based on the fact that he's really taken this on in his role as superintendent, on top of the many other things that he's taken on in his role. So, Dr. Duva, in light of the motion that was made and passed at the school committee meeting last year, has asked the building principals across our district to complete two things. One is a playground checklist, and the playground checklist is done for the purposes of identifying any playground equipment that is developmentally appropriate for students and populations, and just making sure we're taking an accounting of what is available on the different pieces of playground equipment at our different schools, and giving us some data to work with to show how different playground equipment compares from school to school, to look at that as being reflective of the student experience, and focusing on that equity and that consistency. So that's one piece. And then the second is that he has sent out a review form for all the building principals, again, to share observations of their exterior and interior building systems. And basically for this, he's looking at really just them doing a walkthrough of the building and providing any requests or needs that have to do with the maintenance side of things, or just the ADA compliance issues, things that have to do with accessibility, concerns that should be brought forward in preparation for the budget for next year. So we've started that process of collecting that data. And again, I know that he put a deadline to this of sometime in the next couple of weeks for principals to report to him on this, and that's going to be something that we process administratively, and we're going to use as part of our information that we to determine a budget request for what we're going to do.
I know Carolyn talked to me about it and talked about some of the things that were on it that seemed like, oh, they covered that. That was, so she's already working on it, talking about it with us. So I know, just from my end, it's moving forward too.
So that's great. Thanks for that update, Rob. And so I think there will be some good momentum, which is good. So Dr. Duba's really kicked that off, and then I think with the new director of operations, and then having the equity, belonging, and engagement coordinator on board as well, we'll really be able to, I think, get some good data and some good information about the needs that we have in the buildings, and then being able to, like Rob said, work some things in hopefully to the fiscal 27 budget, which we'll start working on after the new year. And then also in our conversations with the town, Dr. Duva does go every year to the asset management meeting with the town, and so that's another opportunity where the school district can talk about needs for the buildings, either in connection to this or just in general. And so I know that the information he's gathering is also to help inform that conversation, which is on December 9th. So some movement there, but also happy to field any questions, comments, thoughts from the committee on that. Yeah?
Okay, so this is, the questions I'm asking are from the perspective of a parent with a child with a profound disability. So on the surface, this sounds to me like this sounds pretty thorough, you know, have the principals do the playground checklist. My question is, are there any parents of children who have profound disabilities included in that discussion?
Not at our school, because right now we don't have any children with, well, no children with significant mobility issues, for example.
Yeah. So I think that's a good question, and I do know, and though I wasn't at the last CLAC meeting, I don't know if you were able to attend or not.
I'm not gonna be able
Okay,
to do
which is
it
totally
this
fine.
year, I've got a Thursday night commitment.
No worries.
So, but I'm staying in the loop though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we can do is via Rachel, perhaps,
Yep.
connect with CLAC, which is the group that I think might have some input. I know there's a couple Hamilton moms there, and a couple other parents that are in different schools. And so they might be a good place to start, but I think that is really important to get that voice, Mary, so we can continue to think about ways to do that.
Mhm.
So Rob, can you note that just for your?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome.
I'll reach out to.
I will-
I'll
I
reach
will
out to
We
as
might
Rachel.
need to borrow a parent for us.
Mhm.
I would be happy to. I no
Yeah.
longer, again, I no
Yeah.
longer have a child in the district, but 10 years ago, that was it was an issue, and it really pains me to see that with the whole issue with the preschool playground,
Mm-hmm.
that I was the only parent really at the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's really important for us, feel free to chime in here as a special ed teacher. It's so easy to be forgotten in that discussion because it's very easy to assume
Mhm.
that, I mean, the majority of our students are neurotypical, but to bring people to the table.
Mhm.
Like, Rob, you mentioned
Mhm.
the principals doing their, I guess, their evaluation, like checking on ADA compliance. So my question would be, who, like, are the principals all up to speed on ADA compliance? Like,
They
how
would.
do they know
Yeah,
that it's ADA compliant?
so we need to bring,
I think there's
We-
some, no, the answer is
Yeah,
no.
the
So,
answer
but
is
I
no,
do
yeah.
think if you know that your button on your door is sticking, right? Like if you have an automatic button and it's sticking, like note that, right? So I think that's where the director of operations comes in on that area of being
Mhm.
able to assess the actual like legal
Mhm.
ADA compliance stuff. But I think what Rob probably meant is like, you know, if they do notice something, if they are seeing something that's important, that is limiting access to buildings, et cetera, that they would note that. So I don't think that's not in an official capacity. They are not trained to do that.
correct, correct.
Yep.
So it's like a first pass, not a last pass.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
so who is the ADA coordinator for the school department?
The ADA coordinator for the school department,
Mm.
the person in charge of, so I think it would be Rachel.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be Rachel. As in her role as Director of Student Services,
Can we
but I can
find that
double check
out?
on that.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
Okay, so Rob will check on that, and then again, I think there's different angles of that conversation too, so for me, like, it's the facilities lens, right, and looking at it in that way, and then obviously there's the education lens that Rachel most certainly has oversight on, and then somewhere in between, right, so, yeah.
And, you know, I can think of one parent who I had a conversation with that was, frustrated with the lack of accessibility for her child to get to an activity using a mobility device. I won't get into too much detail, just because it's easy to identify people. And that's, I think, where it's important to bring people to the table who have that lens, because it's just, I'm no longer really in the disability world, but I still, every time I pull into a parking lot, I look for the parking spots to make sure that they're
Wide
there
enough,
and they're,
yeah.
it will never like come out of my, but if I had not had that experience,
Mhm.
I would probably be oblivious to it, so.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, Mary.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a couple ways we can connect with that. So one, obviously, I think it's great that the principals are looking at it because that was one of our goals, right? To have those building folks having input, not just having someone come in and look at their space. I think we definitely can get it on CLAC's agenda and advertise it as such, so people, if they wanna come to that meeting, can. And then I would defer to Dr. Duva and Rob and Rachel on if they wanted to host like a forum or send out something, you know, like there's some other opportunities probably to get some voice, as well. So I think if we look at it, or try to tackle it in a couple different ways, that's usually the best way in a district that I sometimes find is, it's hard to get feedback from, so if we do a multi-prong approach, I think we'll be able to get some
We have a
good
lot of
info.
schools, like we have a lot of
We
schools.
do,
there
yeah.
are a lot of
Some
facilities.
people are busy too, that's what it's like. Yeah, so, but I'm glad you keep reminding us of that, because it is so important. I also think student voice is so important. So if there is and I imagine the principals are connecting with the students in those conversations, but I think that's another opportunity too. They often know, a lot more than I think we give credit to, so.
Rob, you might remember this, because I have a feeling it was a meeting, I don't think I attended it, but it was a school committee meeting, and there was a student from the high school who had a sibling who had, I think it was a temporary injury that required that person to be in a wheelchair. And that's exactly, I think, what I would use for an example. So she had this opportunity to view the world through that lens, and I think that she noted a couple of entry points at the high school that needed automatic.
Yep.
Yeah, it was the
And we did
cafeteria doors.
follow up
Yeah,
on
we
that,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, it was the
And I
cafeteria
think
doors.
if there's a way, if that student is still available.
We did, I believe,
Yeah.
reach out to see if they wanted to join CLAC, and I know 3 students are joining CLAC as members, and I believe that student might be one of them, but I would have to double
Okay,
check, but I know they were at least invited.
Great.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, it was, that was great.
yeah, that caught my eye as well. I
Yeah.
love when students come and talk to us, so.
It was great. I remember like watching it, and
Yeah.
I don't think she had notes, and she got right up there and she just spoke from the heart, and it was so authentic.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
It really was. It was a great example of like how student voice or just people having different perspectives can really help contribute. And it was great because, you know, as soon as we knew, we were like, all right, let's get on it. And I know that to date that's been done. We've addressed the door issue in both the cafeteria and the media center, which is where the students were having
So
accessibility
are you
issues.
keeping like a list or something if like somebody has, if there is an issue?
In terms of like, if an issue is brought to us?
Well, like you said, they rectified it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the issue is brought to us, then we
Yeah, the
address
facilities
it.
department, yeah.
We'll address it as part of the facilities.
Can I add one thing to the list?
Sure.
I've been asking for this since I joined. And I don't know necessarily with all of these images if any of these students have a disability, but I think for having representation, if we could add a photo of a child, and I think there are some on the website. I know, at least at Hamilton Elementary School, they have on their homepage, kids with profound disability. It means a lot to see oneself represented, or somebody in a, like, for that student, it may not have been herself, but it was her sibling.
Yeah, I feel like the pictures in this space.
Sure,
are
I mean, the
good
pictures in
general.
the space are like, they were the same that when I've.
Yeah, we could probably take a look at them in general.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good point. And I think that's part, right, of our request that we had originally said, is that it's not just about doors and different things, but it's about the representation piece and whatnot. So I think that's another area that the Equity, Belonging, and Engagement Coordinator via the administration could, you know, that would probably be one of the things that would get looked at, because that was part of that charge. And so figuring out that piece, so. More to come on that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
We appreciate
Yeah.
Ideas from the students on this, on kind of how, when we're trying to figure out what needs are, any suggestions on ways to get student voice or just ideas that you might have?
Well, I do know, like, a lot of students, especially at the high school, who participate a lot in, like, peer partners and connect a lot with, you know, students from all over the school. And a lot of them, like, I've even spoken to them about it, are really passionate about standing up and advocating for the students, so.
Yeah. So maybe that's an opportunity that we could ask the peer partners if they've noticed anything, or if the students they're working with, if there's anything that they suggest or notice is difficult. That would be a great group, I think, to tap into. That's a good idea, Victoria.
Looking back at the playgrounds, I wonder if there was something we could like post, like maybe like a QR code or something, so that people, if they like notice an issue, like parents, they could just submit it easily.
So interesting that you just mentioned that, because I work at a college and somebody made that same suggestion yesterday about like door access. They were like, oh, can we put QR codes so people could just text if it's broken? So that is spot on. So that's an interesting suggestion too.
Yep.
Or even something on the website of, you know, if your student, like to get, like you were saying with parent voice, you know, some sort of form that says like, hey, if you notice something that isn't working for accessibility or inclusion in a building, or if you notice something broken or something, you know, isn't, like, this is how you can report it. So being
could
able
also
to actively report it. Yeah,
It
go
would
ahead.
also be helpful, like, you mentioned, like, you don't want people to, like, go out of their way or, like, interrupt their schedule. Like, if they're taking their kid there anyway, then, like, it's not a super big extra step.
Yeah. Smart.
Do they use like QR codes at the high school for communicating things?
Sometimes. Yeah. I mean, for parents, usually, usually not, because parents aren't in the buildings as much. But I think they, and then also this, I know the high school's trying to kind of restrict the cell phone use, which the QR codes don't really lend themselves well to that. But I know that we've done plenty of things through surveys and.
Yeah, we do the weekly newsletters, and we'll always put things on there regularly and leave it on there for, a couple of weeks. So if someone doesn't see this edition, they'll catch it in a different one.
Any other suggestions, ideas, thoughts on this topic?
So as of right now, we're gonna have the principals look at each school individually with someone. I'm just thinking that, like the same person should go along with the principals on these walks, so that we compile the information a little more uniformly. And because, like how you just pointed out the pictures, like someone else might miss that at their school, and then they wouldn't even know to look for it in another school. But if they could share that information somehow, either via person or Google spreadsheet or something, then that information is compiled in one list.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think kind of with the equity belonging coordinator and or director of operations, like that walkthrough kind of vibe does make sense, because you get that consistency, but then you also get the building expertise of the folks that know their spaces and whatnot. So I think I always defer to the administration and how they want to implement things, but
I think
that consistency really does make sense, for sure.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and I think that, and again, knowing we have our new equity belonging community engagement person on board now, I know that the principals have been conducting these walks, but they've been gathering the data, and so my thought is maybe like once we kind of compile that data, getting, one person with an equity lens to kind of look at that, and then also maybe just, swing around the district and take a look at all the different playgrounds they have. That I think that would be a good way to sort of like have that seen exactly through that lens.
Yeah, like what Stu said, that it's a start, not a finish, so like having the building principals look is a great place to start, and then we can build on that, and really try to figure it out, because I think the thing that is important to me is progress. Like, we're not gonna be able to fix everything day one, but really figuring out what are the highest level needs, how do we make impact at all buildings, and then figuring out how to start.
Some low picking fruit, like fixing the doors in the cafeteria. And I would think putting a new picture up in here, I'm just thinking that would be, you know what I mean? So you can do it both ways, and there's no reason to do it one way or another, but start.
Yeah.
Right?
I also think putting things in place that allow for continuous review, like you can't just do it once. And so figuring out for a district, like how do you get it to be a cyclical process where you're, where it's done annually or it's done, so it becomes kind of, because the more you do it, the more often you look at things, the less work there will be, hopefully.
And
So
the better
figuring
you
that
get
piece
at
out.
it, too.
Yep. Okay,
Can I
so
make
Mary, anything else on that you wanted to add, or anyone else, ideas, thoughts?
Can I just make a
Yeah, of
quick
course.
clarification? Back to your question, Mary, about the ADA compliance officer. So typically, that would be the plants and grounds or facilities director would be the person in charge of that. Obviously, we have an interim in place right now, so we're looking to hire the full-time permanent person. But typically, that would be the person in charge of the ADA compliance would be that. And then also, just to clarify, the second point that I made about the maintenance school building facility review process that principals are going through. I want to just clarify a point that their task in doing that is to kind of observe the interior and exterior of their buildings and just look for like any like significant major needs that need to go into the budget. That said, we are gonna share that process as well as the playground checklist process with the CLAC group and see if we can have that done through that lens. So I just wanna clarify, because I didn't want it to be misunderstood if there was a specific principal walkthrough process that was like for the special accessibility piece alone. It's really more of a general facility need walkthrough. Does that make
Can I ask
sense?
you about, and this is like a specific thing,
Yep.
because I think the bond was not approved for the combined middle school, but my understanding was they were going to make significant improvements to both of the middle schools.
Mhm.
Has the topic of the elevator at DMS is that on any list for?
I know that yes, because I know that with the upgrades we're doing at DMS, there's gonna have to be, the elevators, are required. Are you talking about the elevator in terms of functionality, in terms of location, like?
Both.
Both, okay.
I know.
So I know it's not I know the location is
Yeah.
not on the dock for changing. But, and again, I don't wanna,
We can follow up.
yeah, let me follow up on that, because I do believe as part of any review process, they'll check to make sure it's up to code and things like that.
Yep, I think, I would imagine the concern at DMS is up to code and convenient for students is a
Right.
wildly different thing, and that building is really challenging. And so I think I would assume that, and I do not honestly, Mary, off the top of my head, think that is being addressed in this work.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
You know how I feel about that school building, so.
Mhm.
But we can double check on that, and also there's still opportunity, we're still in the planning process with the building folks, so we can see kind of where they are with that and what has been explored, so. Anything else on this topic? And then we'll move on to goals.
Thank you for being the voice for the years.
It's my job.
We appreciate it, because I don't always think the way you do, so I appreciate your
We
being
all
here.
think with it. That's the beauty of, like, we think in different, like, it's bringing
Mhm.
people together with different perspectives, and that's, I think, our strength.
Well, we're trying.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to our next item, which is discussions of goals for this year. And so, so I know, I wasn't able to come to the last meeting, and so I believe you all maybe had touched on this topic, but it seemed like, from my understanding, maybe progress had not, do you wanna bring it up? Yeah, progress maybe hadn't been made on determining what the goals of this subcommittee would be this year, correct, incorrect, anybody remember? Is anybody here?
I was not here last time, which is why I made sure I was here this time, even though I had to do a weird knock at the door.
We appreciate
So
it.
I do not know.
That's okay.
We discussed,
Yeah.
we went through the spreadsheet
Yeah.
and we kind of talked about it. I don't think we came to
Okay.
any.
Perfect.
Yeah, we didn't come to any conclusions on
Okay.
what exact goals we wanted, but we went over it.
Okay, perfect. So, that is freaky.
It's,
I know, it's trying to figure out its life. Me too, computer. Okay, so, two
That was
things.
funny, Erin.
Thank you. I am quite funny some things. Okay, two things. One, so I don't know if Jen shared with you or not, we are, I believe, okay, so she did. So, I believe really strongly that the advisory committees that are advising the school committee, like, we're all on one team. So the school committee, the advisory committees, and the administration, we're all working towards goals. And so I had given Jen that document of kind of trying to connect what this advisory committee was working on or looking on this year with Dr. Duva and the administration's goals that are approved by the school committee. So that's that piece of the conversation, which I think Rob was pulling up that document. On the other hand, Jen also wanted me to remind you all about the priority recommendations from the equity audit. And so if you're not all familiar, in 2022, huh?
2022.
2022, great, perfect, glad that, yes, that's great. We hired an external company, they came in, they did an equity audit for the district, and they had given us some very clear recommendations on the work that we could or should be doing. And so just to review that quickly, in context to the conversation we'll have tonight, is one was set a clear vision and common language for equity across NKSD. One of those things was creating an NKSD equity vision statement, which, for those of you who were in the room, we know we had 45,000 drafts of it and ended up having a final product, which was great. Engaging stakeholders was a very important piece of that, publicizing the vision, and we'll circle back on all of those sort of things that got paused with the vacancy in the position. But then also creating an equity communication plan. So all of those pieces were kind of connected to that vision and the common language. So we've made some progress there, and then we'll continue to work on that as a district. There was another thing that was in the equity audit as a recommendation was develop a district-wide equity policy. Another one was prioritizing equity-focused professional development, which the district has done some of, which is great. The administration's been really supportive of prioritizing that with the small amount of time that we have to do professional development with staff and teachers. And then review and revise discipline policies and practices from an equity lens. And it had recommended creating consistency with discipline matrix, examining current disciplinary policies and practices, and then using restorative discipline practices. And that actually was a temporary advisory committee at one point that had done some work and some recommendations, and then had come to time. So that is kind of, she wanted me to give you that context, and then we also have the document that I made to have folks kind of think about. And I think, you know, for us, having some specific goals for this group is really helpful, because if not, like, we're not going to solve DEI in our district any year, right? It's a continuous process, but I think having some wins and having some goals, like last year's big win was finishing the equity vision statement. Like, that was a really big accomplishment for this committee. And so I think for me, having us kind of figure out how we can support the administration and the school committee in what they're working on for the district goals, and then also honoring and kind of considering the equity audit and what we were told by the experts we should be looking at. I think having like 2 or 3 goals that we'll focus on for this committee will help us feel productive and not like we're just spinning our wheels every meeting, which is important. And so, not to go over this document in, like, again, 100%, but so basically these, the ones in the bold were the goals that Dr. Duva had presented to the school committee. But they're all connected to the strategic plan that we have in the district. And so when you, so if you look at, so like for number 1, I did not draft any specific ones that this advisory committee would look at. But if you scroll down, Rob, for like goal 2, you'll see some options or ways that I thought this committee might be able to help support what the administration and the school committee is working towards. But we need to pick some things. We need your opinion on what you all think would be best or most important. Because there's more things on this. There's more things in purple than we should or could accomplish in a year. So. And it's not just obviously up to this advisory committee, but kind of where we think as a group we could have input or voice. You know, that's the whole thing, that we advise the school committee on what to do. The school committee really oversees budget, policy, in those areas. So I think that's an important piece to remember as well. And then obviously we make recommendations to the administration on kind of the direction to go in sometimes. So with goal 2, which is very specific to advancing equity, access, and inclusion across all school strategic priorities, which I would like to acknowledge as a win for this committee in general. To have that as one of the superintendent's presented goals is great. One was revising 2 to 3 policies to create more inclusive practices. And so there is a policy advisory committee, but this committee could have impact in that area. Like if we were interested in looking at a couple of policies and making recommendations to the policy advisory committee, or, you know, giving that to Mary's point, that important feedback of having like different views and lenses on things, that could be an opportunity where we could help specifically in trying to create more inclusive practices. So that's like option A, if you will. There's the reduction in disproportionate discipline outcomes and chronic absenteeism. And so I had put some suggestions there. So that's kind of another opportunity or area that this committee could do. And I tried to write them in a way that it was in our scope, like not what Dr. Duva should be doing, not what, building folks should be doing, but kind of where we as an advisory committee could be helping or making recommendations.
Mhm.
So that is that area. And then, Dr. Duva, like when it says like action steps, those are the ones that Dr. Duva had presented, so the purple kind of connect to those as well. So there were some things about training and policy, in his action step suggestions, as well as, provide suggestions regarding community forums that could help elevate student and family voice and participate in a community forum with the administration. I think what Mary was bringing up today could be a possibly good example of that, right? If our advisory committee wanted to suggest a community forum or something like that, for folks to come and talk about, the accessibility and inclusion review, that could be something that we could advocate for. That's kind of examples of what that could look like from us if we wanted. And so the document's really long. I feel like do they have access to it or no?
Don't know. I can post it, I can,
I don't think we do, yeah.
okay, you want me to post it to the agenda? Can I do that?
Yeah, you could link it to the agenda.
Okay,
I got access, 'cause I think they sent it out we sent it out last meeting, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
What I'll do is this, I'll link it to the email that Jen sent out to everybody.
I have a question. On the second option, it was something about, like absentee, like chronic, does that also cover tardies?
No.
No.
No?
It's a good question. Tell us more.
I just, like from a student's perspective, I'm not like, obviously being tardy is wrong. But last year specifically, like my brother would drive me and he's very like flimsy, like he's not the most like reliant, and often I would be late by like 10 minutes and then I would get like a tardy and I like would have to like, I don't know, just get like a punishment for it, and it was just like annoying. It would be nice if like maybe we like extended like the time to like take advisory. Or
You know what happened to me when I was in high school and I was late all the time? My punishment, because I went to a Catholic school, was I had to come early, and
like the
they
story
like
from high
overcorrected me, and so I had to be there a half hour early.
Yeah,
So it's like, I mean, I'll tell you, that's
I have,
a
like,
so as a person that was often late in high school, I completely, and I was also the salutatorian, so it wasn't like I was just not doing anything.
Yeah.
So I completely appreciate your perspective. The chronic absenteeism doesn't take into account your tardies. It's like a different thing than what you're thinking about. That's something your student council might want to talk to your principal about.
So just so you know, we actually extended the number of tardies you can have before you get the punishment. I don't know if you saw that, just to kind of like.
Yeah, but don't do it now.
No,
Was
it
that
wasn't to encourage you to have more tardies, but we realized some of the instances that can happen, that may not be in your control.
What is
and
the
so-
number exactly?
What is that?
What's the number?
So we extended it to 6. You're allowed to have 6. That's a pretty high number in a quarter.
That is a high number. If you're at a
Okay.
job, you wouldn't get 6. Just saying.
Love this topic.
Sorry.
Nope, it's totally fine. And it's such a good question. But to clarify on the goal, so we have what disproportionate discipline outcomes. So what that means is that the data that we have says that if student A does something and student B does something, they might not receive the same punishment due to certain factors. I think race was identified in the equity audit, et cetera, right? So that's what the disproportionate discipline means.
Okay, I actually love
go ahead.
that because there's like, especially in the new phone rules, they're like super just like not the same for each teacher. So
Yep.
it would be nice if we like, I like that one.
Okay, so that's one, and then the chronic absenteeism one is, there's a certain threshold, and I don't know it off the top of my head.
18 days.
18, yeah.
Great, thank you. So if a student's absent more than 18 days, they're considered chronically absent, and so trying to, as a district, reduce that number. And so with this goal that Dr. Duva is saying, of an indicator of success would be reducing the disproportionate discipline outcomes and chronic absenteeism by a percentage. So, with that said, one of the suggestions that I had was that the committee could review data, including the recommendations from the discipline committee. They had made some recommendations when their term was up, that ad hoc committee, which means temporary committee, and make recommendations to the school committee regarding actions that could be taken in spring of 2026, and also if there was any budget allocation needs for next year's budget, because we make next year's budget like in January and February, and for the next school year. And so like if one of our recommendations, for example, was like we needed to buy something interesting or we needed to do training on whatever, like that could have a budget impact, so like that would matter. So that's one of the things this committee could do. And then there was another one about reviewing data and making recommendations about chronic absenteeism and trying to talk about that piece.
And the reason why is if you are chronically absent, the outcomes are not as good for you in terms of your future for
Academically?
Just in period.
Mm-hmm.
Your outcomes are not as good if you were chronically absent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Going to school equals better, but it is more complicated than that too.
Yeah, it is, but that's the bottom line
Yes.
too. You gotta go to you gotta go to school. You know?
Are the 18 days per quarter or
No,
for the
year.
entire
That's
school
the
year?
year.
For 10%.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if you've been
Okay.
in school for
Yep.
30 days.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
And we always say, I always wanna couch what we say in this, is it's important to note that like those 18 days that RIDE determines as being chronically absent they do not take anything into consideration. They just consider you either in school or not in school.
Yep.
There are definitely many reasons why not being in school would be appropriate, illness-wise and otherwise, right, for students who need that. So just want to couch that statement in that, is that we, as a district, we drill down a lot further than that when we come to analyze attendance data. It's not just black and white, you're here or you're not. We always take into consideration individual student circumstances and what may come into effect with their need to be out of school in certain cases and how we would respond to that. If that makes
So
sense.
RIDE doesn't take into account like excuse or not excuse?
They do not. They do not.
And it makes sense, in my head it bothers me, Will, but like it does make sense if, from going back to what Sue says, like regardless of why you're not there, if you're not there, you're not there, from a education perspective. But what Mr. Mezzanotti's saying is really important too, because like there is a lot of factors that go into that play. So like even if that's true, it might not be the most important thing for that student in that moment, depending on what's going on. And so I think for our district's goals, one thing that has happened is there has been an increase in chronic absenteeism across the state since the pandemic. But then also, like, there's some students that, like, it won't change for whatever reason, to Mr. Mezzanotti's. But then there are maybe some students that maybe there is an equity or a diversity or an inclusion problem that is the reason why they're not coming to school, and helping work on that is where I feel like that lands in this zone, right? Like, there's the cohort of students that just won't be impacted, but then if there is a connection to the work that we're doing, that's where I think that comes into play, if that makes sense.
So an example is my social worker that I work with does most of the attendance stuff, but we were looking at, in our school, kids that identify as Black do not feel as connected to school as some of the other groups of kids, right? And kids that do not feel connected to school are more likely to be absent. So one of her things that she based on her data is to increase the connection of kids that are Black to our school. And she's got a whole research-based way that she's going to work on that. But those are the kinds of things, very relevant, the data is very relevant to the work. And it's very relevant to this committee.
Okay, so back to trying to figure out what we're gonna do this year. I'm making another tab with all the purple stuff to try to make it easier, because it's kind of overwhelming, overlaid on Dr. Duva's, for my eyes at least. So give me 2 seconds and then you'll be able to see it on the second tab, which is my new favorite feature on Google Docs.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
It's okay, yeah, we will get there in a second. Boop, boop, boop. Can you see it?
NASC.
And like, what was the outcome of this meeting? We all learned how to spell Allison's last name.
No, I haven't.
So,
Might recognize it though.
Erin, when you say second tab, do you mean,
Okay, see on the left where there's like a little thing that says 2 now? Lower.
oh yeah.
Cool. Click on it. You're gonna be very excited.
They do
Now
tab
click on
with,
tab 2.
with,
It's so fun.
look at that.
I know.
It's exciting.
It's the
Wow.
small ones.
So this is the purple language.
Yeah, so I just took all the purple out. So I guess one of the things that I would ask from this committee is like, there's a reason you're on this committee, right? And so what I would love to hear is kind of why, like kind of maybe why you're here and like if it's connected to any of this stuff, because I think people do their best work when they're excited about something or when they're passionate about something. And so if there is something that's specific that you were like, hey, like I applied to be on this committee and I come at 6 o'clock at night after being in school all day or work all day or whatever because of X, like I think that would maybe help narrow it down, because all the things on this list are important. All of them will get approached in some way, but it's just like, how do we as this group want to spend our time, and what impact do we want to have? Like there's no perfect answer, so we get to pick. So is there anything specific that like led people here or that they're interested in or passionate about or something that bothers them that we could maybe help us prioritize? What do you got, Victoria?
Well, for me, a big part of the reason why I joined the committee was, well, my brother, he's on the spectrum, and he actually ended up moving to the Narragansett School District because he didn't get, like, the help he needed with the programs at North Kingstown. Like, the big school district and stuff made it really difficult for him to get the help and really be able to thrive in the school. So with that, and also, like, you know, I have friends who, like, have lesser seen disabilities like ADHD and stuff who struggled a lot with getting the individual learning plans and stuff like that to help them thrive in school. So I think that like with the 3 policies to create more inclusive practices, if we could kind of like work on that, that would probably be something that I'd be passionate about.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that, Victoria. I didn't know that about you, so
I
thanks.
love that we have Sue here to be, like, I'm like, Sue, you're so kind.
No, I just
So
didn't know
kind.
that, and I'm glad I know that
You're
now.
so good at your job. Okay,
Just
thank
as
you,
a
Victoria.
clarifying follow-up
Yeah.
to that, are those first 2 bullets, are they kind of, are they paired together? Like, are they, because they seem like they would,
So you can go
Be-
back, you could go back to the original
The first
doc
tab,
if
the other
if this
tab?
doesn't work for you, yeah, go back to that. And then you'll see like that one, those 2 are friends. And so, one option was review and provide input on 3 policies that would create a more inclusive practice. Another option could be recommend 3 policies to the school committee to be reviewed and edited by the policy advisory committee. So I tried to give us ad alternates, like do we want to get really in the weeds and give feedback on the actual language of the policy, or do we just want to look at the very, very, very long list of policies and say, hey, we think the policy subcommittee should look at these 3. So there's kind of
That's
2
good
routes we could go there.
clarification.
I'm sorry,
No
like, what's
worries.
the difference between the 2? They sound pretty similar.
Yep, so the bottom one
Mhm.
would be, hey, like the advisory committee looked at these and we recommend to the school committee that the policy advisory committee edits these. So we would just be
Okay.
identifying the policies. The
Okay.
first option would be review and provide input on the actual
So
policies.
we would edit the
Yeah.
language,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
So I
that
just
makes sense.
tried
All right.
to, no, sorry, yeah, my
Yeah.
brain is.
So based on that,
Yeah.
and just my
Yeah.
opinion, and going off of Victoria's, like her comments, I would say the first one then, to really look at the language. I
Yeah.
think that we can have a conversation here around the language that goes into those policies, and maybe make recommendations, based on that.
Yeah. The good news too is, for the school committee liaisons for this committee and the policy advisory committee, it's Jen and myself for both. And so, and Rob sits on both as well, and so that's not a bad thing, because we'll be able to easily take this feedback and bring it to the other group, because there's another whole group that could look at it as well, which would be good. So, there'll be some nice, like,
Mhm.
we won't lose things hopefully in translation. Okay, so that's wonderful, thank you for sharing, Victoria, and that
Go back
context.
to
Rob.
tab 2 though, that was
Yep.
easier for me to think about what I wanna do.
Yeah. Other thoughts on like why people are here, things that they really wanna make sure that we spend our time on?
I think I'm here because with all these processes, I always like think of Martin Luther King's biography. He talked about with a change, you have to always take on the personal, the social, and the systemic. And if you just focus on one, they crumble. And I just always like that pivot. Like I remember I was in an administration course and there was a guest speaker who's passed away now, Constance Clayton, and she talked about like the population we're talking about with discipline and stuff, and like a lot of her solutions were like getting off school hours for like parents and getting like transportation for parents and making sure you had translators and like not making assumptions and having conversations. And like I'm here to bring up that voice because it seems like a lot of times we make our lives difficult because they're hard and we're trying to get a solution. Like we'll have a policy, like let's have a perfect policy for tardies, and then we're so front end on like legality and litigiousness, we don't approach, like, no offense, like the school personnel with like, how do you talk to a parent? Do you call home to inform or do you call home to talk? You know, and that's literally what I've done as a mentor teacher. I remember being a first year teacher and having a department chair coming to me, and I had like a really bad 2 classes, and she looked at me and she was like, "Did you call home?" And it like, I literally almost like shut down. I had called home so many times, the parents had told me stop calling. So then like I was a mentor teacher like 3 years ago, and I approached a new teacher. I'm like, call home with a question, call home to share, call home to connect. And they literally sent me a thank you card. So it was the same advice, but it was just nuanced difference. And that's why I'm here to bring that perspective of like, let's reverse it. Let's follow like Chumamanda Ngozi Adichie's practice of like, you kind of know you're in the right if you reverse it and you have no problems with the reverse. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you. With
So,
that said, yeah,
Is there anything that really strikes you as something that you think, like,
the reverse it or the
Definitely
that
like
three-pronged
some
approach.
of the policies, you know, some of the discipline outcomes. I know we have riot edicts, but stuff like tardies and stuff like, you know, when you're gonna make somebody face a draconian outcome, you really should have the full context of what the student's going through. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Thank you, that's super helpful. Other ideas, thoughts, while you're here? Yeah, Allie, and you are welcome to sit at the table.
I know, right?
You just can't vote. That's the only thing you can't do today.
Tally sat
Sit
at
next
the
to
table.
Will.
Come on,
He's very
sit.
nice.
Will's pretty
I just
good.
didn't want to block the screen and
Yes.
see if that was over.
Yeah, go ahead, Allie.
I think when you guys were talking about policies and actually when you were just speaking about, you get kind of mired in that policy language, I think a good lens to look at policy is how to remove the barriers. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason you were tardy every day. There was a barrier there.
Or me,
You know what I
yes.
mean? 'Cause your brother, but you know, there must have been some barriers that your brother was facing that just weren't, you know, they weren't apparent, or else they weren't, someone can dive deeper into what those barriers were. And if it's a barrier for one person, I guarantee there are other people out there that are affected the same way.
Yeah, such a good point, Allie. I'm big on root cause and like trying to figure out like the why something's happening and not just, to your point, like the reverse it, right? Like how do we fix what's going on versus just punish the
Yeah.
opposite side kind of vibe. So, okay, other thoughts that people have?
Can I just,
Yeah.
can I just add, the one that has the strengthened family engagement through advisory groups, community forums, that elevate student and family voice and provide multilingual communications. I'm not sure what I'm suggesting fits here, but I've been trying to think about this team and how this team can kind of help. When I think about communication, I think about communication that goes out from our schools, from thousands of people, right? And so one challenge we have had is something goes out and then we look at it and then someone will say, hey, this should not have said this. This is not super inclusive. So I was wondering, to get everybody onto some kind of a consistent page, I wonder if this committee can create some kind of guideline, like a one-pager or something that is because sometimes people don't think they're writing things, right? They're just writing it, and then it's just so hard to keep, like, just for my building, we have about 127 teachers that's probably worse than my phone not going off, so.
No, I liked
I'm glad.
learning that about you too, by the way.
What is that?
What your song was.
Oh, yeah, I change them every 2 years, but my point is, like, I think our staff sometimes struggles and could really use some guideline from a committee to say, oh, if you're choosing to say this, consider this.
You know, there might already be something available that would help provide some of that, I would think. That we could maybe,
Like, and that can be then applied to, like, everything, you know, when you're revising your handbook, when you're revising things, just
Yep.
consider this.
Okay,
So
noted.
I don't know if that falls in that area.
Yeah, I think it does, and I actually, last night at the school committee meeting, I actually had asked Dr. Juba to look at that particular goal, because I'm big on, like, goals that can be, like, did we do it, did we not, and that one, so he is actually making that one a little bit more specific, to be able to say, like, yes or no. But I do think for that the point you brought up about the communication is really important, of how do you get a whole district on board with being more inclusive in their communication. Like, I know the administration tries really hard, but there's so many people, and there's so many things to remember, so I do really honor what you said about how, you know, good intent, but sometimes bad impact, and how do we help people with that, so.
I also would jump on that too, is I think the goal needs to be more focused in communication. I think it needs to be conversations and connections, like, cause, you know, diatribes don't really do a great job, so, you know, I think, like, go for connections and conversations, like, listen to each other, hear each other, talk about it, like, not, like, I believe in, Jefferson Fisher's book about conversations, is that if you win an argument, all you did was win the person who has to apologize first.
I like that you drop references when you talk, it's my favorite thing about you.
I just like citations when I talk.
I love it.
Anyone who's had me knows that.
I do like the connection point, absolutely 100% agree. If you wanna improve almost anything, think about how to make connections with people.
I think that, to that point, one of the hardest things for me in the past 3 years being on the school committee is that connection piece. Like, we've been trying really hard to engage folks, get people to reply to surveys. I know we had a low response rate from the students when we sent that one out last year, which has been rattling around in my brain. Or we had a forum about safety, and I think 15 parents out of potentially thousands showed up. You know, so I'm trying to figure out that balance of how do you create those connections and conversations in a way that's going to work for the folks that we're trying to serve. And so I think that's something, I don't know if this committee can solve that problem, but I definitely think whatever we talk about, thinking about that, because it is more challenging than I am used to, I guess, in other areas. Anyone else want to share why they're here, things that they think are important on the list, things that are in their brain? Go ahead, Mary.
So what brought me to the committee was two of my children. And I know I talk a lot about the accessibility. So my daughter, who graduated from the high school in 2023, is Black, and growing up in a predominantly white community had its challenges, and she would never complain publicly. Like, she would come home and she had a microaggression with a staff person that was just, actually several with that one particular person, and I just, it made me think, like, what else, how many other things does she experience, and how many other kids? I'm sure she's not the only one. And then secondly is my son Michael, who was in the district for 16 years. He was profoundly disabled. 2 years ago, he died unexpectedly after a surgery, and he was in all of the special ed programs in the district for students with moderate to profound disabilities. So we, you know, I just had a lot of, like, contact with the special ed department, the therapists, the bus drivers, monitors. I mean, we were just really enmeshed in a different way than with my daughter in terms of contact. And so I think I saw room for improvement with accessibility. And I think the things that I could relate to, amongst, if I had to pick two, was to provide suggestions regarding community forums that could help elevate student and family voices and participate in a community forum with the administration. I like the one about the connectedness and belonging as well. And what was the one for, okay, the facility modification, so there's three. So it's the recommendations to guide improvement in connectedness, and then the accessibility audit.
Okay.
Sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you.
Others? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm here when I saw you were creating this subcommittee. I just thought it was good because I could provide perspective, because some of the students you were talking about were me. Like I was born in Bronx, New York, mostly R&R public school, and then all my teachers were mostly white. And my mom actually found a scholarship program, and I had to go to school, like double school, and they prepared me to go to private school, which was predominantly white, and there were a few black people. So my experience is like some of the same things I see here in NK. Like like maybe there's one minority or two in each classroom. So I know how they feel, like when you feel like you belong, and then when something happens and then you don't. And also, I mean, as a teacher, like when we go to the PD meetings and stuff, we look around and I'm like, oh. You realize like you're the only one here, and it's so like some of the things we're talking about. Like I know I just felt like I could provide a perspective.
Is there anything that on the big list that you would be excited about, or that connects to that kind of desire to help students that are in a predominantly white community and might be facing some of those struggles of belongingness and connection?
I mean, there's a lot. There's
Any favorites though?
Discipline,
yeah.
The absentee, like you said, there's connection between belonging with the school and absence. Like, I think I can I'm a pretty good brainstormer, so some ideas for how we can help with that.
Great. Okay, those are noted. Anyone else want to share? And there's also, whenever I do this, there's no mandatory sharing in my world, so if you just want to sit quietly and listen and learn too, that's totally fine too. I just think it helps to kind of understand people's why, especially when we're trying to narrow down something that like I said, they're all important. So it's hard to pick, so we just gotta kind of vibe. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I transferred in between my freshman and sophomore year from a school in New Orleans, which is it was a melting pot school, and you had kids from every background, so everybody's voice was really heard, and there was no discrimination. Everybody was held at the same level. Everybody was equal in that community. And then I came here, and there were some I saw voices not being heard, people being discriminated against. Just overall, I thought there were some racist behaviors that I saw that really bothered me at the beginning. That's why I joined, and so that's why the one about increasing family voices and student voices is really important to me. Making sure that people are heard and held on an equal level, and that also goes hand in hand with disciplinary. People are treated the same, and yeah, stuff like that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Aaron, if I could.
Yeah, please.
These are all really awesome. I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I think that when I think of the work that we do, often I find myself coming back to the whole idea of belonging and engagement. And when I think of how we get there, because right now I think we have a lot of work to do with students, particularly students in different subgroups, students of color, students with disabilities, students from low socioeconomic backgrounds, of feeling more like they belong in our schools. So one of the things I know that has been successful, and I'm talking a little bit more with a focus on the secondary level right now, but I also think there's things we can do at all levels, is how we can connect all of our students to explicit opportunities for them to think beyond North Kingstown middle school and high school, and think beyond that, and think of how they can connect with opportunities that they are gonna take with them tangibly when they leave us. That's been shown, I mean, research has shown this like through and through for years, that students who feel that they have a tangible goal that they are working towards, that is real, that is connected to their future, that is beyond just their, you know, K-12 school experience, are much more likely to feel like they belong in school, are much more likely to feel connected to school, and are much more likely to be engaged in what they're doing when they have this. We do a great job, I think, on that in general, but we are not doing a great job on that with students from the subgroups I mentioned. So I would say that that's an area that I would really like to see us address and get better at. And I think it's directly connected to that belonging piece.
Cool. Anyone else want to share? We are narrowing a little bit. I do hear narrowing, so we're I'm listening to what everyone's saying, and then we'll kind of circle back up on it. Anyone else want to share?
I'll share
No
just because
reason
I
not?
think I should, right? Because you all were brave
No,
enough
you
to
don't.
share a little bit about yourself. So just so that we're all kind of, you know, equally brave, I'll share. So my 2 kids went through North Kingston High School. One is gay and has a pretty significant reading disability. So I have been through all the meetings on the other side, on the parent side, and just so I a little bit share Mary's voice, the parent voice, right? But the other piece is that I am a school psychologist at, I believe, the most diverse school on any rubric that you wanna, any measure that you wanna talk about. Quinnesset is the most diverse school, and it sounds a little corny. That is like our strength. We are like amazing, and we are fun. That is our strength, that we are so diverse. But I'm not happy with our academic outcomes. I'm not happy with our chronic absence. So all the absenteeism, like there's just so much more work for us to do at Quinnesset, right? That's why I am here, so that I can be here for my students, who I love very much. Oh, like I'll cry because I love them, love my sons, and I love my students. And that is why I'm here, even though, you know, I don't think I'm from a very diverse background myself, per se, but I hope that I can be here to listen. And a lot of the things that we will talk about here are things that affect my students, and so I'm here for them.
Sue, so I heard
Yeah.
the academic outcomes piece and the absenteeism piece, which
Yep,
is
and then I
on the
just
board,
think the
so.
way to do it is actually belonging and connection. But connection, I can have some more control over, about my ability to attempt to connect. Belonging, that's like a more two-edged, like that's a two-way street, right? But I can do things that increase my my skill at connection.
Okay, anyone else want to share? We do only have 10 minutes, which is fine, but yeah.
I don't wanna like take the time.
No, you're fine.
No,
Take the
no,
time.
no,
I just
you're
wanted
right.
to,
Yeah.
for those who were worried that it's almost 7, I wanted to acknowledge the
Okay.
time, because I know that sometimes in a meeting, I'm like, oh my god, where are we going? So go ahead.
So I'm here because my mom, she works at Noel Academy in Providence, which is a school for pregnant and
Parenting.
Yeah.
parenting,
Yeah.
yes, teens, and also like teens that come from a different culture, so they don't really speak fully English. And I've heard like a lot from that community, like just like so many of them live in like such terrible like home environments, like their fridges are just like fully empty, and like they just like don't have any like safe home to go back to. So one of her schools' like biggest problem is that their attendance is so low, but it's like I feel that they like, I don't know, like I hear a lot about how they're trying to like work to support and fix it, and I want to help that in our school. Yeah, I just know a little bit about like other like culture.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about what they're doing too, because
Yeah.
if they found some ways to really connect and reduce the absenteeism, I mean, we can only learn from other people, right?
It's difficult because their population is definitely like a lot smaller, but like me and my mom, like we've been in the car and we like make like a phone call to like her student, like, hey, like wake up, time for school, like we do that. So it's like nice to see like that small things like that can
They do.
Noel's a tremendous school.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous school. I've had the good grace to be able to connect with several of the educators there and learn about what they do. They do a tremendous job.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone in Pell in Newport, the social worker would go, he'd have to go pick up people from their house, cause,
Mhm.
you know, their mom had to like work all of a sudden, and then the student just couldn't get to the bus on her own.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it sounds, in the areas that we were talking about, it sounds like there's definitely some interest in making some recommendations around the absenteeism and the belonging and the overlap of those, like they're not independent, and so maybe, that sounds like an area of interest from this group. Cause I do think, to your point, like there's different ways to approach things, and where I really see the school committee and the advisory committees having impact is that bigger level, right, of, you know, we know that there's amazing people like Sue connecting with students on one-on-one and the teachers, but like how do we systematically create opportunities for belonging, or how do we systematically reduce issues that are affecting attendance? And so that's where this committee has a really cool opportunity to really think big about how we can advise the school committee and the administration to put resources somewhere or to change a policy to try to encourage, you know, something to shift, that could help the goals that you all were talking about. So that's the cool part, is that we have like some cool power. And so with hearing you all, I think, in just an interest of time, I will work with Rob and Jen, and we can kind of take what you all said and kind of try to narrow down our focus. And then also working with Ally, which is really exciting. And then at our next meeting, which is in December, we'll kind of come back with, okay, based on your all's feedback, where the administration would like some voice too, because they might be working on some specific things, but there's areas that they really would benefit, having the advisory committee, you know, contribute. We'll come back with a narrowed down list, and then we can start working on, you know, action plans of what that will look like and how this committee can contribute to that. So we'll have more next time in December. Anything else, questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, before we wrap up?
Thank you, everybody, for sharing. It's nice to, because I feel like because we always have so much that we do our intros, but like to know, like, what's the story? Because I always say, like, you just don't always know, like, what are people carrying with them? Like, what's in their backpack?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you all for
Yeah,
sharing so much.
I just want to say thank you all for being part of this and for giving up your time to be part of this and sharing your perspectives. It really is like a tremendous thing that we have such nice representation here. So thank you all, really.
Great. Hopefully we made Jen proud. So with that said, our next meeting is December 17th. Can I just get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, second. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nancy. All right, Rob, you want to hit the camera?
My mom was from John Marley.
How much
I
water
was
does that
born